Cessnock knew privatisation of the jail was looming. The local council had already passed 2 motions opposing it, but that hasn't lessened the concern now it's been inked out by the bureaucrats.
I think it's very short-sighted of the New South Wales State Government to try and make money out of this when the security and the safety of the local community is at issue.
Councillor Ryan believes it's likely to cost jobs and hurt the local economy.
I'm hoping that the community of Cessnock have got a great deal further to say about this, and we won't be quiet about it.
Another group not about to put down the megaphone is those pushing for the F3 link to Branxton.
Really, we never expected the state government to list it as its number one priority, simply because the state government is Sydney-centric.
Mr Thomas says just making yesterday's mini-budget appendix shows the project still has legs, and he expects the soon-to-be-released Lower Hunter Transport study will show how vital it is.
While if it's in the race, it's going to be up to the jockeys who are riding it to make sure it gets to the front.
Already past the post, Maitland's third river crossing, aiming to alleviate inner city congestion.
I think it will really open up, in particular the CBD, for future development in terms of both the residential and commercial areas.
Penny Evans, NBN News.
It was a call to arms by the Australian Education Union that Newcastle TAFE teachers seemed to embrace. The union launched its Keep TAFE Public campaign at the Tyers Hill campus in response to a federal government discussion paper proposing to make TAFE compete with the private sector for $4 billion worth of annual funding.
That means TAFE would have no guaranteed funding. It would simply become a private provider like any other.
According to the union, that could spell disaster for both teachers who wouldn't be guaranteed a job as well as students.
TAFE needs to have that guaranteed funding so it can tell students what's being offered, and it can assure them if they start a course, they'll be able to finish that course.
What's more, she says the quality of TAFE courses would suffer and student fees soar, which could worsen Australia's skills shortage. The union is continuing to roll out its campaign and will ask TAFE teachers across the state to lobby New South Wales Education Minister Verity Firth not to support the proposal at the Council of Australian Governments meeting later this month. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The FA-18 Hornet is a formidable fighting machine, and when our pilots unleash this level of firepower, their aim must be accurate. To help them fine-tune their skills, the RAF has engaged Port Stephens-based company CE Solutions to supply a weapon impact scoring system. It uses cameras mounted around the bombing range, which record how close the bomb falls to the target, giving pilots almost instant feedback. The $750,000 system will be installed at the Townsville bombing range, but it's hoped that a similar system could be supplied to the Saltash range near Williamtown. In a true local success story, C&E employs 10 people and uses mostly local companies to supply its materials.
And it's not just this company, but there's a range of suppliers that we've used locally, and we've proven that they're capable of providing a quality product. And at the end of the day, Defence will realise gains in having that local support.
The company hopes to prevent skilled locals from leaving the hunter.
We're providing an avenue of choice for graduates coming out of university and other technical trades to be able to do interesting work here in the local area. They don't have to go overseas. They don't have to go to another capital city to do that.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
63,000 primary school-aged children across the region aren't getting enough exercise, according to the latest research from the Good for Kids program. And it seems some teachers could be doing more to foster a love of physical activity.
A lot of teachers don't feel as comfortable with PE, especially generalist primary school teachers.
To boost teachers' confidence about what to do in physical education classes, Good for Kids program workers have been running a series of workshops across the Hunter where teachers were taught a variety of simple yet active games.
The timing of the workshop's very specific so that they can incorporate it in the new year.
And today's participants felt immediate benefits.
Learned heaps about how to implement physical activity in the classroom.
It's been absolutely wonderful, and take things we've learnt today back to school.
These legendary Australian golfers have plenty of reasons to dwell on the past, but today the talk was all about the future. In particular, putting on more high-quality tournaments for our emerging talent and building up events such as the New South Wales Open.
They've got to learn to play in 4-round tournaments to improve their games, to see where they are in their stature and standing, etc., and then go over and play overseas.
Golf in Australia is very, very strong. In fact, it's most probably the strongest it's ever been. The only trouble is we don't have a figurehead.
Veteran pro Lindsay Stephen will play in the Open again this year, but today he was more interested in playing reporter. "17-year-old Luke Humphreys has just finished his HSC and now the New South Wales Amateur Champion is gunning for a professional career, starting at the Vintage tomorrow.
I found it a little bit intimidating, but I've been out this morning and played with 9 holes with Kurt Barnes, who's an Australian professional who makes you feel quite comfortable.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
I've got the right genetics, I've got the right attitude, dedication. There's no reason why I can't be up with the best in the world.
He's the billionaire owner of the new Gold Coast A-League football franchise, but it seems Clive Palmer has also taken a shine to harness racing. Palmer and his prize runner Fox Valley Appeal are hoping to take the Newcastle Mile Trophy back to Queensland this Saturday.
He's the intriguing runner, and he's been given to a local trainer, Adam Regari, so I hope it goes well for Adam, and Clive Palmer's going to be here to cheer the horse on.
He'll have plenty of competition, but Special Albert will carry local hopes out of Barrier 6. Trained at Summersby on the Central Coast, the reigning Newcastle Horse of the Year is well rested and ready for the big race on his home track.
I think it'll be some little advantage to him. He's won most of his races there. He started off there as a 2-year-old.
He's won 33 races, but Dawson says it's time for the 6-year-old to step up and beat the Miles quality field.
They're all good, and the one in front, if he can run a quarter real quick, the ones behind can't do it. So you've got to be up there or you just miss out.
It's hoped the winner of the $60,000 event will be invited to the Miracle Mile at Harold Park in a fortnight. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Ever since the BHP vacated its Mayfield waterfront, the state Labor government has dangled a carrot to the people of Newcastle with the promise of a multi-purpose terminal. In 2003, Bob Carr told the wharfies he'd make it happen.
Secures the future of many families in this region because there'll be a growth not only in immediate waterfront activity but in port-related industries.
Just last year, Maurice Yemmer promised progress.
To bring dollars and jobs to Newcastle.
But the reality is that the government is investing $750 million expanding Port Kembla and Port Botany, and the Hunter's turn could be 20 years away when those ports reach capacity. And that's the background to today's announcement. The government says it'll spend $25 million turning part of the old BHP wharf into a general cargo berth. It's certainly not the jobs creator that successive premiers have promised, but it seems that's all we can expect in the short term.
You're looking at about 7% growth per annum in Sydney with container activity. That means that Newcastle, hopefully, within a decade we hope, will be able to become an economic proposition, a commercial proposition for container activity.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Rubbish is what Lake Macquarie General Manager Brian Bell is angry about, and rubbish is how he describes the state government's mini-budget. At issue, the $10 a tonne increase to the waste levy that will cost the Shire and in turn ratepayers an extra $400,000 a year.
We have to find that money somewhere, so our citizens have to pay to allow their community to survive, to provide the services that we need.
He says the government needs to justify why it's put the levy up.
Why do we need this extra money now, all of a sudden, for the mini-budget? Is it to fill the coffers? Possibly, yes.
Hinting that the relationship between local government and the Reece government is headed to the tip.
To be hit with these things and slugged like this, it really does wear on the local government system.
The General Manager warning those in State Parliament not to waste ratepayers' hard-earned cash.
I sincerely hope that the state government uses this money wisely, because we don't know where it's going to support or benefit our community anymore.
Penny Evans, NBN News.
A few final hours of exam hell and it was all over. Just like that, 13 years of education complete, and students at Whitebridge High were elated.
Oh, so good. I'm so glad it's finished. I just got heaps over studying and it's really good. I'm feeling overwhelmed. You have no idea. I feel like seriously I could do anything.
I'm kind of relieved, because it's all over.
Like so many across the state, they're now looking to the future.
Celebrate, definitely. I don't know, hopefully a lot of celebrating and then see what else we can do.
Teachers full of praise.
It makes me really proud that they've all finished and they've all had a really good go at it.
And they're almost as relieved as students the stressful time has passed.
Teachers are very stressed around exam time and even nervous about what will be on the paper because they've tried their best to teach the course.
But while the exams are now over, students still face an anxious few weeks as they wait for their exam results to be released on the 17th of December. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Ash Island near Hexham has undergone an unusual full circle, from swamp to farming community, then flood-ravaged wasteland back to wetland. Over the last 15 years, government agencies and community groups have transformed the former grazing land into an oasis, planting thousands of trees and restoring habitats.
They're now growing up into forests and we're starting to recapture some of the spirit that was there back in the early 1800s.
Next, they'll look even further into history, developing a management plan with the Awabakal community to document the area's Indigenous past. And as the native birds and animals return, it's hoped people too will find their way back to the island.
Having that sanctuary so close to a populated area like Newcastle, it's also going to be a great opportunity for recreation and tourism.
Projects like this couldn't thrive without volunteers. This Sunday they'll all be back at the wetlands planting up to 1,000 trees as part of ongoing rehabilitation efforts.
When you look at the amount of community effort and the number of hours put in by volunteers and others, there'd be tens of millions of dollars that would have been invested in this project.
Penny Evans, NBN News.
These are regular kids who share a common condition, diabetes. It's a disorder we hear a lot about these days, usually in relation to excessive lifestyle. But type 1 diabetes is different.
Type 1 diabetes has no relationship at all to lifestyle or dietary choices or weight gain or anything like that. Type 1 diabetes is something that just happens.
And it can happen early. Little Julia was just 2 when she was diagnosed. Now, at 4, she handles blood tests like a pro. A special pump dispensing insulin as needed. Julia's cousin Jessica is also a type 1 diabetic, the condition all too familiar to this family.
I've had it since I was 8 years old. My husband's had it since he was 20 years old, and my eldest daughter Jessica got it July last year. We're now testing Charlotte for it.
Newcastle has the highest rate of juvenile onset diabetes in Australia, the city an appropriate setting for the World Diabetes Day Monument Challenge. From tonight until Sunday, Council will illuminate the Civic Park fountain in blue.
I reckon it's a really good way to promote diabetes to everybody.
Experts are also urging parents to watch for the key signs of the onset of diabetes, excessive thirst and urination, and seek help.
If people get diagnosed early and treated early, they have normal lives.
The New South Wales Open represents a huge step up for Newcastle's Jake Higginbottom. But the 15-year-old amateur started with the confidence of a seasoned professional. He was soon cursing missed opportunities, 6 over after 12 holes. Fellow amateur Luke Humphreys also had a tough first taste of the professional ranks, the 17-year-old carding a first-round 77. At the other end, veteran Roger Davis didn't disappoint. The former British PGA champion still has plenty of tricks up his sleeve, sinking this monster putt for birdie on the first. After a slow start, 2007 Open champion Jason Norris made a late charge to finish in touch with the frontrunners. Shots like this kept big-hitting former Muswellbrook professional Kurt Barnes in front of the chasing pack early, but poor putting saw him slip back to 1 over. No such problems for playing partner Michael Long, back in the clubhouse with a 3 under 68. Another Hunter product, James Niddies, had plenty of chances to stake a claim for the title. His approach to the 7th set up an eagle opportunity, but he was forced to settle for birdie. Things only got worse on the par 3 8th as a wayward tee shot found the water. Niddies would eventually drop back to 1 over after 18 holes. The tournament continues tomorrow. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Bold statements are nothing new from the Mundine camp, but these fighting words came from Jamie Pittman, and it won't cost the man a cent.
With me, Mundine, you don't have to worry about any money at all because I'll show up for free, for nothing at all. I'll fight you wherever you want me to turn up. Just bring your gloves.
It follows claims that Mundine won't fight Aussie boxers because they ask for too much money.
I fight for pride and I fight for entertainment. I fight for the people in the crowd and stuff like that. I don't fight for money and stuff like that.
Mundine's manager, Coda Nasser, welcomed the challenge, responding by saying it's now up to Pittman's people to make contact. Word wars don't wash with this middleweight, who's a man of few himself.
I like to finish it early. Yeah, get in and get out.
A knockout specialist, Tui Lavini is the Australian light middleweight champion, but through a lack of contenders, the Adamstown boxer will fight Kiwi Paz Vijo, upper division.
Seafood diet, seafood, need it.
Stockton cruiserweight Daniel Aman is bulking up too, preparing to make his comeback as a heavyweight in 6 3-minute rounds, having recovered from injury.
I just wanted to get one in before the end of the year and everything's going well. My hand's going well and had a bit of a rib injury and that's all sorted out now too.
And a good thing, given he'll give away 28 kilos when he fights Fijian Oscar Talamara at Mayfield X Services on Saturday night.
He hasn't trained since the Jets' 2-2 draw with Perth, and this morning Mark Milligan was back on the physio table receiving attention for a sore Achilles. He won't make the trip to Bahrain with the Socceroos, but Milligan says it's nice to know coach Pim Verbeek thinks he's ready.
In each game I feel that little bit better, and on the weekend I felt good, but I still don't think I'm there or totally ready yet.
For Jade North, the late call-up was also a pleasant surprise. The captain admits it will be a tough turnaround after the World Cup qualifier next Wednesday night.
I get back to Australia on the Friday, and I think we leave to go on Friday to Wellington. So yeah, it's going to be a tough ask, but it's not as if I haven't done it this season before.
North is battling an injury of his own, but says it's nothing compared to Craig Moore, the man he could end up replacing in the Socceroos lineup.
What I've been reading anyway, everything's looking positive for him anyway, so we just all hope here at the Jets that he has a speedy recovery.
Meanwhile, the players say Gary Van Egmont's two-match sideline ban has strengthened the team's resolve to turn their season around.
Well, I think Gary just showed how passionate he is, how much he wants us to win and work hard for him and I guess show the same passion as he does.
You know, the boys have got their spirits back and a bit unlucky on the weekend, but that's football and, you know, we just got to get on with it.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
It was his first trip to Newcastle as Premier and Nathan Rees was showing off. The orchestrated announcement was all about hammering home one message, that despite the state's funding crisis, Rees can deliver.
Feel it, touch it, smell it, kick it. This is about delivery.
The $370 million contract includes about 80 single-deck outer suburban rail cars, along with a train stabling yard, creating 220 direct jobs for United Group.
The trains will be delivered by September 2010. They are an extension of the existing contract, but this will be a fundamental improvement for the people of New South Wales in their transport system.
As for the Newcastle rail line debate, the state government is open to reconsidering its position to keep the railway running into the CBD.
It's been in need of revitalisation as long as I can recall, we need to consider all the options. With regard to your very direct question, do we think sentiment has shifted? My view, but guided by Jody, my view is that community sentiment has shifted a little bit on that issue.
But he dodged questions including a commitment for a bus or train service between Cessnock and Morisset, which Kerry Hickey raised in Parliament this week.
I'll have to get some advice.
He also avoided some other requests. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. Flames erupted from the shed at the rear of this property just after 9:30 this morning. Police say a 48-year-old man had been working on a car inside the building when the vehicle somehow caught light and the fire quickly spread, causing several nearby gas cylinders to explode.
The owner at this stage has some superficial burns, however the ambulance will be looking after him, and it would appear that the shed's been totally destroyed and all of its contents.
Jim Threadgate recorded the drama as it unfolded. He says it's a miracle no one was seriously injured in the blaze or subsequent explosions.
I shook the houses. When I came out of the workshop and had a look down the street, there's a big mushroom black cloud up above it, so I figured it was, something pretty big.
Residents were evacuated from nearby properties and a 200-metre exclusion zone was put in place for 4 hours amid fears of further explosions. Madeline Bond, NBN News. It's a figure that shocked the experts.
Oh, look, it's absolutely amazing. An unemployment rate of 3.1% in the Hunter, when unemployment in other parts of the country are going up, is a great result.
We have been expecting an increase in unemployment and we just haven't seen it.
The low unemployment rate is for the month of October. Lean and efficient workforces throughout the region, as well as our strong resource and manufacturing sectors, are apparently behind the drop.
The economic base of the Hunter is just fundamentally strong.
But given the state of the world's economy, our unemployment rates are expected to rise next year.
probably 1% or 2% higher than what it is now, but certainly nowhere near the sort of levels that they're predicting for other parts of Australia.
And that's not the only bad news for workers.
Our surveys are also showing that things like overtime are being cut back. Less overtime means less income for people on a wage.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
At 2 days old, this calf symbolises not only new life on this Aberdeen property, but a fresh start for dairy farmers everywhere. Frank Wheatley is a third-generation milk producer and was among the 96% of cooperative members to support the sale to National Foods at $5.65 per share.
Set the wife and Helen and myself up for some sort of retirement.
His son, Scott, has been managing the operation for well over a decade, through good times and bad, including the recent drought which almost broke their backs. Instead of walking away, he doubled production to 2 million litres a year, and like other dairy farmers in the district, is now looking at employing more staff if they can find them.
This cash windfall is a bit of a reward for farmers who have stuck with the company and produce the milk through thick and thin.
Under the sale terms, dairies to sign new agreements will have their farm gate prices fixed until June 2010 at least. As a sweetener, National Foods will offer its suppliers 1 cent a litre on top of what they are earning now, should the Supreme Court approve the proposal on Tuesday. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Armed with a new aggressive approach, Townsend attacked with success again on day 2 of the Open. Backed with some newfound self-belief, the 27-year-old feels like he's finally living up to his potential.
It really does feel like I have. I'm hitting plenty of good shots. I've got a sort of good control over where it's going to go. Even my bad shot, I kind of know where that's going to go.
Not that there were too many of those. Save for a bogey finish on 18, his only blemish for the day, and able to enjoy lunch as a 5-shot leader.
Today was only Friday. You know, you got to be careful of what shots you try and pick and go after, and what flags you think, okay, yeah, I can go after that. But other than that, yeah, it's very much a mental game.
After a course record 62 to open the tournament, the vintage brought Jamie Arnold back to earth today, with the overnight leader settling for a 2-over par 73. Veteran Roger Davis had a big turnaround, from a 68 to a 78, which saw him fall back to 4 over, and he wasn't sure if he'd make the weekend rounds. Lee McKechnie will be there, and had he enjoyed a bit more luck with the blade, he could have cut deeper into Townsend's lead, but at 4 under, he's well placed with 2 rounds remaining. The afternoon groups were all steamed up before they even teed off, but James Niddies and the like all have some catching up to do, with Townsend sitting pretty on top.
I'm really happy with the way I've approached the tournament. I'm sort of trying to be as aggressive as I can, and so I'm happy with where I sit, obviously.
He can't win the Australian Rally Championship, but Michael Guest is keen to make life as difficult as possible for those who are in the running this weekend at Coffs Harbour. After a season as rough as the forest roads themselves, Guest is looking for a big finish.
We've hit kangaroos at 180 kilometres an hour, had a big accident in Adelaide, and we've had some mechanical issues. But, you know, rallying can be like that. When it's going your way, you know, it all flows along nicely. But, you know, for me this weekend, it'd be nice to get on the podium and just finish the year on a high note.
Only two drivers can win the ARC Championship, and they're both in the Toyota camp. It's Neil Bates with an almost unassailable lead from defending champion Simon Evans, and he should have the title sewn up after tomorrow's opening stage. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
The future of the Newcastle rail line is no closer to being decided than when the issue reignited in mid-October following GPT's ultimatum. Councillor Aaron Buman says if the state government won't act, he will call for a vote.
I'm prepared to get in there and put my hand up and make it a referendum at the next state election and let the ratepayer decide.
Councillor Michael Osborne supports the idea but questions Councillor Buman's motivation by bringing up the issue after the local government elections.
I think it's showing lack of courage by not raising it then, and now he's just pandering to the developer mates.
And that's not all they disagree on, both believing they know what residents want.
And the consensus is quite clear. They want the railway line gone.
I think most people want to keep the rail line.
The Lord Mayor has an entirely different take on the debate and thinks councillors should focus on local government issues.
And this talk about what might happen in 2011, we haven't got time to wait for that sort of nonsense. We need to get on with the job that we're elected to do.
Madeline Bond, NBN News. It was a cake cutting that couldn't be any more hands-on, as young and old celebrated Mayfield Pool's 42nd birthday. This time last year, the facility was under threat, with Newcastle City Council considering closing it down. Residents are doing what they can to make sure the pool stays open long term.
We're unsure about the future, but we just really want to try and get people to utilise the pool.
The Save Mayfield Pool Group is now trying to raise around $15,000 to install solar heating at the facility and boost patronage. To do that, they're selling tiles for $10, which will be displayed around the pool, making today's event not only a celebration, but also a fundraiser.
The weekend means business time when you're a professional golfer, and it attracts all sorts to follow them, from kangaroos lining the fairways to ex-wallabies gracing them. Test rugby great Matt Burke, one of the amateurs, teeing it up with the pros for the last 36 holes in something of a tournament quirk.
Well, this is the individual sport, isn't it? I mean, there's no one to blame but yourself. You know, at least if you drop a ball, you can sort of blame on the bloke who passed it to you. You know, so it's such a great level.
So far, Aaron Townsend has been sitting head and shoulders above the rest. Starting the day a 5-shot leader, the Newcastle golfer continued his good work, draining a birdie putt on the first. Jamie Arnold's course record 62 on day one seemed a world away today. He had a real mixed start to the day, but finally got things going on the way back to the clubhouse. The only other to make any real impression on Townsend today was Stephen Jones, with the Victorian in a dogfight for second. But with a healthy lead heading into the final day, Townsend is going to take plenty of catching.
The younger the message is rubbed in, the better the chance we have of avoiding skin cancer.
There's no such thing as a healthy tan.
Inspired by her brother's school lesson, Lauren Saws organised a melanoma awareness day at Merriweather Surf Club to teach her fellow nippers about the importance of slip, slop, slap.
I think it's the good age to do it because then they know from now that they have to be cautious.
For the Hunter Melanoma Foundation, it targeted the perfect age group.
We know that the number of sunburns and sun damage that you get when you're young greatly contributes to the number of skin cancers and melanoma you get when you get older. And our region has one of the highest incidence of melanoma in the world.
Newcastle Knight Corey Patterson knows personally how dangerous melanoma can be, losing an uncle at 27 to the cancer.
I thought, well, that's pretty young, you know, so hopefully I can spread the message to some young kids, you know. They can do the appropriate things to prevent it from happening to themselves.
He agrees image can be a problem when encouraging teens to cover up and protect themselves.
It is very hard, you know. I like to think I'm pretty cool, so if I'm wearing them, you know, hopefully they'll take note.
Penny Evans, NBN News.
If Aaron Townsend was nervous before today's final round at the Vintage, he was hiding it well. Sitting a 6-shot lead at the tournament could only be lost from here, but the pressure sat well with the 27-year-old.
I'm going to play the same shots, the same clubs, and try and hit in the same spots I have all week. But I think all of them would trade places with me, so that's got to be a good thing.
And why wouldn't they? With shots like this on the first to set up birdie, it was the perfect way to start his final round. Moving to 15 under, Townsend held a commanding 7-stroke lead. And with some of his main challenges going the wrong way, the now Sydney-based Novocastrian only tightened his grip on the State Open trophy. As Townsend tore ahead, the fight for the minor placings became an interesting sideshow, with Victorians Tim Wood and Stephen Jones jostling throughout the day. In the end, Townsend finished 7 shots clear at 17 under to score the biggest win of his career and hopefully the start of many more.
There's something living in these hills, and they, or it, visit Lloyd Stapleton's Glendonbrook farm.
So he's come over the gate, landed real hard on this foot here and blew chunks of clay back into the tyre track.
Last week, another set of prints appeared near the creek.
And the dogs were all going off just before daylight that morning.
And that's not all.
Many years I have heard this call up the mountain, which I thought was an owl.
What's it sound like?
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Museums and the local Rural Lands Protection Board have no explanation, but Australia's Yowie expert Rex Gilroy and his team believe they know. They're planning an expedition to search for evidence. Apparently, the Hunter Valley is a Yowie hotspot.
I had always heard of the Cessnock, Singleton region from early settlers' tales of the hairy people or Yowies.
Lloyd is a farmer, a natural sceptic, but even he admits it's a little frightening to think he's not alone on Morani Mountain.
When, you're working up around the mountain sort of thing and you hear a twig crack or something behind you, you're jumping,
But Rex believes whatever it is unlikely to come after us.
They watch us from a distance, they're inquisitive about us just as we are about them. They're our immediate ancestors, but we couldn't live in their world now any more than they could adjust to ours.
Tell that to a local hamburger shop.
We have 2 Yowie burgers, thanks.
Penny Evans, NBN News. Frank Gardner's family could hardly have imagined this. After well-documented attacks in recent months, the Guardians of the Statue, the City of Newcastle RSL sub-branch, want to relocate the memorial to a safer location in Civic Park.
All the other memorials are around the Civic. That's the Civic Park is the memorial park. So that was the most logical place to put it.
Veterans are upset it's not being treated with the respect it deserves.
The fountains are just being used as garbages.
They're worried it could get even worse if the redevelopment of the post office into a bar goes ahead.
It's not going to be a very stable place for it. Early in the morning and that. It's already been vandalised several times, so we're trying to avoid that again.
The decision has the backing of the region's 23 other sub-branches and the Lord Mayor.
It'd be lovely to see that monument refurbished in an appropriate location, respecting what it stands for, and its history and its heritage.
It's estimated moving, storing and restoring the monument will cost $40,000.
We'd have to raise it through public subscriptions and probably some money from Department of Veterans Affairs, the federal government.
It's highly unlikely to be moved before Anzac Day, with planning expected to take up to 12 months. Penny Evans, NBN News.
In 10 years, this part of Coal and Allied's Mount Thorley Warkworth lease will be an open cut mine, but for the moment, it's a test well some 400 metres deep. The aim, put simply, is to remove methane from the coal seam before open cut mining begins.
Currently in open cut, when you mine the coal, the gas is released. So this is about 60% of our emissions just going into the atmosphere.
Researchers estimate this would be halved should the pilot be successful. The project uses technology a decade in the making to tap into more of the seam, therefore enabling more of the highly potent gas to be captured.
The method we use for drilling these holes is high pressure water jet, which is really what makes this very unique. The pressure in your car tyres is 30 psi, this is 13,000 psi.
If and when they extract the methane, it will be flared or burnt off, less potent than today's method and of course cost effective, potentially saving Coal and Allied millions.
If we have the carbon pollution reduction scheme introduced, we will have less emissions to be taxed on.
Further economic benefits could see the extracted methane on-sold to power companies to generate electricity. And if this pilot project does deliver results, that could be as little as 2 years away. Perhaps sooner for nearby power stations like Redbank.
You know, this is an experiment. We don't really know how much methane we're going to get. But yeah, we're very optimistic that we'll be able to utilise the gas if there's enough.
Not many people realise knocking out a wall could knock years off your life or that of someone you love.
Almost every house built or renovated up until the mid-1980s probably contains asbestos, and that those home renovations that people think they're doing innocently, they could actually be exposing themselves or their family to harm.
Left alone, asbestos isn't a problem, but when it's broken up, it can have deadly consequences.
Mums and dads, I don't think they know how to identify asbestos, and then especially if they start disturbing it, they really need to know to get in a licensed or a qualified person.
The Asbestos Education Committee, set up in the wake of the James Hardie compensation deal, is embarking on an awareness project jointly funded by the New South Wales Government, the ACTU and James Hardie. The Hunter was deemed the perfect test market to trial the campaign, which includes a website and information leaflets that will be distributed by local councils and hardware stores.
There's a high level of fibro, asbestos-containing fibro in use. Also, the fact that it's a contained community meant that we could test the campaign and how effective it was.
The program will be reviewed next year before a possible national rollout. Penny Evans, NBN News.
was really angry and really upset, but I got to keep my heads up and get this thing recovered and get on with the next year's season.
Former Newcastle coach Ian Crook has deliberately kept a low profile with the senior Jets team since teaming back up at the club, but he'll play a key role this weekend. Under his suspension for poor conduct, Gary Van Egmond has serious communication restrictions with his team on Sunday, with the game day reins effectively handed to his assistant Mark Jones, Crook and the players themselves.
It's a fairly strict rule and one which I'll abide by, and as I said, during the whole week is when we'll ensure that the players will know exactly what to do, and come game day, that's players' day, and they're the ones who'll take responsibility.
James Holland headlines the 4 Australian under-20 players back from their successful World Cup qualifying campaign, and not a moment too soon. The last time they played, Newcastle beat Melbourne, and that sort of form would be welcome at the weekend.
Obviously did well over there, so confidence is high. We did qualify and we've got the World Cup to look forward to next year, so it gives us that little bit extra thing to work for. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fresh.
Sitting just above last-placed Wellington on goal difference, the game isn't a must-win, but things are starting to get desperate. The coach believes Mark Milligan will be okay despite withdrawing from the Socceroos match this week. It was a finish many years in the making. After so many close results, the 27-year-old Charlestown Pro's maiden tour title was savoured.
I can't say enough about how special that is. I've had 5 runner-ups, and to win, my first one and be the New South Wales State Open is tremendous.
A 7-stroke victor at the New South Wales Open was as dominant as it sounded. Come midweek, he'll be hoping his rich vein of form continues at qualifying for the lucrative US PGA Tour in America.
I can't fault my game at the moment. I feel very confident. So this is great sort of preparation, I feel, for what I've got coming up.
The win saw Townsend finish second on the Von Nida Tour Order of Merit by just $780. But what it means in terms of confidence is hard to measure. Now guaranteed starts at all the major Australian PGA events, he's set for a busy summer. Belmont teenager Brendan Smith was the best placed amateur, finishing in a share of 10th at 2 under, while Lee McKechnie and James Nitties were the next best placed of the Hunter golfers.